wanted to begin our conversation with the topic of resilience. It's been an ongoing topic for the last couple of years, but I suppose even more so over the last probably month. Can you talk about how we need to be resilient through these uncertain times?
Yeah, so definitely. So previously there's definitely has been a lot of talk about resilience. So the foundational level of resilience, which a lot of people perceive it to be, is mainly about perseverance, persistence, and bouncing back. So for example, to give an example about riding a bicycle, if you go over a pothole, you fall, you break your leg and all that, the common idea about resilience is how you can take care of your wounds, how you can recover, how can you actually get back onto the bike and get on with the journey again. So it's all about bouncing back. But the whole notion about bouncing back is that we assume that there is a desired or expected return to the norm or the previous norm. But the question we need to ask ourselves, especially during these unprecedented times, is what if things are never the same again? So I guess the whole idea about resilience has to be broadened and deepened as well. So instead of thinking about resilience in terms of just damage control or risk management, we also need to put in things like vision, strategy, foresight, and innovation as well. Because what if the previous ways of working aren't the best? What if we can't go back to the previous norm?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
In terms of, I suppose, from our end, we're seeing a lot of people being made redundant and stood down.
Mhm.
And especially over the last couple of weeks, and we can see it, from speaking to our clients, there's going to be more redundancies and standouts
Mhm.
coming up. How does someone, I suppose, become employable during this time? What do they need to do?
Very good question, very deep question as well, and it's a question which we all must ask ourselves. So if a person is stood down, so I kind of am able to relate to this because I was fired out of my first job after university. So my team leader just gave me a call saying that, Dominic, it was nice to meet you. You don't have to come into the office today. We'll keep you posted for future opportunities. And that was it. So I think if someone has been made redundant or let go by a company, if you are strapped for cash, look for the lower hanging fruit straight away. Just get yourself back to getting a job. So look at the obvious choices like supermarkets, pharmacies, food delivery services, healthcare, factories, warehouses, logistics, companies which are doing IT support as well. You can consider that because a lot of small businesses are virtualizing and digitizing their services. They're going online, so that could be more demand there, as well as even service stations because people still need to pump the petrol. Trucking companies still have to fill up their trucks and their vehicles, and also maybe even look at farms because whether pandemic or not, whether recession or not, the crops still need to be harvested. And if they can't source labor from the backpacker talent pool, they'll definitely have to look at other areas. So go straight for the lower hanging fruit, just get a job, get something going, get the cash flow in. That's really important to keep your finances and your family afloat. Which brings us to the next question. I really want to draw a big distinction between a job and a career. Right? Most people think that they are the same, but they can actually be miles apart. So a job is basically a bundle or a basket of tasks in which you do something to get paid. It's very transactional, usually quite low barriers to entry, highly commoditized, highly transactional. So you just go in, you do stuff, and then you get paid. But a career is something that utilizes your professional skills. So for example, if you're an engineering graduate, if you work as an Uber driver, you only have a job. But if you are working in a role that utilizes your professional skills, your engineering capabilities, then you are in a career. So get the job fast, but also work on your career because you might get into the job, and the risk about jobs is that as easy as they come in, they can go easily as well. So supermarkets are on a hiring frenzy because there's a surge of demand for people buying groceries. but the question we need to ask ourselves is what happens after things settle down. Once the demand drops, then they won't need that many hands on the ground, so there's going to be a drop in the labor requirements. So if you are just looking at a job in itself, it might be very temporal, very vulnerable. So that's why you need to establish your career as well to put you in a stronger professional position. So there are a few ways you can become more employable during this pandemic and recession. The first is if you realize that your industry is being frozen. So, for example, if you're in civil engineering and the construction sites have been shut down because maybe the infections have spread to that area, you need to explore secondary pathways. So for example, engineers can maybe go into management consulting because they have transferable skills in the area. People in science could explore maybe a career in finance. People in psychology could go into HR because they understand how people work, how people think and behave. People in hospitality could consider education or IT support because they've dealt with people. They're able to meet customer requests. People in F&B could explore a career in banking because instead of serving food, you serve saving accounts, you serve investment options, you're still serving people. People in logistics could explore a career maybe in project management because you see things from end to end. You see the process cycles, you see things from an operational perspective, so you can bring that into other industries as well.
Quite interesting how you're using your transferable skills to go into different roles and possibly different careers. It's good. In terms of, I suppose, how does someone, I suppose it's a good time for people to reassess their careers, and someone that, say, is an accountant might say, look, I don't actually want to be an accountant. Passes. How do they go about, I suppose, assessing what they should be doing next, or where they take their career next? What could they do there?
So first and foremost, just it's really important to take stock of your professional assets. So your professional assets is a collection of things like your past education experience, your work history, your transferable skills, your knowledge, your expertise, your professional connections, as well as for those who are maybe more creative or even programmers themselves, their portfolio. So things which you've done, evidence of demonstrated skills. So take stock of where you've been so far to actually, so that you are able to assess what you're truly capable of and what are other options which are available to you. So one key skill which I really want to highlight is the importance of being entrepreneurial. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you must start your own business, because some people still want to work for someone else. But entrepreneurialism is all about being able to create something out of nothing, to be able to look at a situation, to see what's happening, and to actually identify the opportunities within. So to give you some examples, if you are a person in marketing, how you're able to create experience for yourself is maybe do some freelance social media consulting and gigs for small businesses, because a lot of them, they have been selling to people face to face in person. Now they have to take their products and services online, and that's a different landscape altogether. For example, if you're in accounting, one thing you could start to explore is maybe provide your services to startups for them to navigate the whole tax landscape, to help them better manage their cash flow. So that's another way. So I think it's all about, if you can't find experience, find ways to create experience for yourself.
I want to talk about, I suppose, and a lot of people probably are thinking about it, how does someone, I suppose, future-proof their career so that if something like this ever happens again in our lifetime, feel more confident that they're able to get through it?
Okay, so that's a very big question. I've got a few pointers, so just hang in with me. The first one is to actually get your mindset right. So develop the abundance mentality. So when you look at the news, it is full. It's easy to sense a lot of fear, scarcity, and negativity, because in essence, news outlets, they use negativity to attract your eyeballs and your attention. That is how they sell the news. So you need to guard your mind, you need to guard your head space, watch your head space, watch whatever information you're letting into your mind. So develop the abundance mentality to actually know that there are more than enough opportunities out there. There is no limit to how successful you can be, and most of the limits you have on yourself are mainly self-imposed. So the first thing is to approach the situation coming from a position of abundance. The next thing which I want to talk about is this thing called global mindedness. So it's all about understanding what's happening in the world itself, looking at the different trends happening out there. So to give you a brief summary, people are living longer right now because the standards of living are increasing. People are getting more educated and connected as well. People are getting wealthier and they are expecting more. People being lifted, people who are living above the poverty line. If you look at the statistics, it's actually increasing. So people are becoming more well off. They're traveling, they're moving more into cities for more opportunities, and they are also traveling more. So they want better experiences. They're actually becoming more discerning. They're becoming more connected, even becoming more demanding as well. So if you see that people are progressing, you are actually able to position yourself for this kind of opportunities. So if you're in healthcare, definitely you can align yourself to the fact that people are living longer, because when people live longer, they need to take care of their bodies and their minds. If you're in the finance industry, there are implications as well, because if people are living longer, they still have to feed themselves. So how do they preserve their wealth? How do they protect their savings? How do they be still financially healthy in their golden years? If you're a teacher, people still want to be more educated. People want to be more informed. So what does that mean? So the biggest question which I want people to take away from this is this question called, what does this mean? All right, we just hang on to it. I'll go through my other points. One other thing to help you also become recession proof is to actually develop cross-disciplinary expertise. So let me give you an example. If you're in marketing, don't just do marketing. Explore how you can engage millennials and Generation Z individuals. If you're in hospitality, see how you can use analytics to analyze and predict foot traffic in your retail outlet, for example. If you're in engineering, find out ways on how you can develop persuasive communication skills, because it's one thing to be technically apt, but you also need to present a case to the business to bring the project forward. If you're in banking, maybe explore using UI or UX to better map out and chart out the customer journey. So one example, which is really interesting, is this company called Goodyear. So they manufacture tires for commercial vehicles and for normal drivers as well. So what they did is they actually implemented sensors and they put it around the tires, especially for trucks. So they have this thing called the Goodyear Tire Pressure Management System. So instead of just supplying tires, right now those sensors actually collect information and data. So they're actually able to predict, use analytics to predict movement behavior, wear and tear, to actually predict and prevent leaks in the tires, damage, and to monitor the pressure and the temperature as well. So instead, so they have moved from just being a tire company or a tire supplier to a tech company. So it's adding the extra layer or dimension in what you do. And the last point I want to mention is, especially in operating in a pandemic or a recession, you need to be able to find opportunities. So this is what I call opportunity consciousness. And the question to ask is, what does this mean? So even though there's a lot of confusion and uncertainty out there, but there are certain things which we can more or less be certain. So we can be certain that people are working from home, more people are working from home. We can be certain that when people at home, if the schools are shut down, the kids will be at home. We can be quite certain that they still need to eat, they still need to take care of their house, they still need to take care of the kids, they still want to learn, they still want to be educated, they still want to be entertained. So a lot of people on Netflix right now. um, so those are some things which we can be certain. So if we ask the question, what does this mean? So if people want to stay fit and healthy at home, if you're a personal trainer, maybe you can explore creating fitness videos so that they can work out in their living room, so that they can work out using different objects at home without having to go to the gym. If you are a chef, you have been stood down from your restaurant or your cafe, maybe you can provide some content as to how people can create home cooked meals which are really healthy, which are really tasty, and also on a budget, because people still need to eat, people still have to feed their family, and people want to save money, especially during this period of time. So what does this mean? It's actually a very, very powerful question to make sense of whatever that's happening out there right now. Hope this makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I like it. It's a good way to put it, and a good question to ask ourselves. Moving on back to job hunting, so I've just been made redundant. I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit because that's what I could go for. What are your suggestions for job hunting during this time? So, I might be quite a senior person and now I'm applying for, Woolworths position. How do I suppose get through those hurdles and go about searching for a job?
Exactly. So I think the first thing is always maintain a positive attitude in all that you do. So there is no shame in you going for a position which is lower than you. There is no shame admitting that you feel disappointed, you feel a bit lost. There's no shame seeking help right now, because we are going through something which we haven't felt before, even though the world has been through different pandemics in the past, but this has occurred on a global scale. It has affected businesses on a global level. So many businesses and organizations are being shut down right now. So it is fine to admit that you're feeling, in fact, the pain. You're feeling you're being hurt by this. So there's nothing to be ashamed of when you go out for whatever opportunities you can find, because we all have a duty to take care of ourselves and our loved ones and our families. So go for whatever opportunities you might find. But one thing I want to stress about is how you actually manage your time as you're looking for work during this period. So you need to ensure that when you are looking for work, or when you are in this period, you need to break out your time into 3 parts. So there are 3 things you must do when you are navigating this space. The first thing is to job hunt. So even though you might get the job in Woolies, you still need to keep looking at opportunities in your sector, in your domain, in your expertise. So the big distinction which we talked about previously, job versus career. So you have a job that's good, it's paying the bills, which is fine. So that is more or less taken care of, but do not put all your eggs in the jobs basket. You still need to build up your career. So look up for opportunities and all that. The next thing you want to do is to network. So go online, build up your LinkedIn profile, meet with employers, meet with recruiters, meet with people, professionals in your space doing what you're looking for. Put yourself out there online. So that's the second part. The third part is to upskill yourself, because you want to constantly sharpen your skills, sharpen your mind, and always develop your competitive advantage. So you might find that the blessing in disguise from being let down from a job is that you have more time available. So it's important for you to occupy yourself well, because if you don't do it, if there's too many gaps in your schedule, your mind will start to tell yourself funny stories like, oh no, I'm just stuck in this rabbit hole, life sucks, things are so tough. And you might actually go into this downward spiral, which is really dangerous. So when you actually intentionally put effort into training your mind, learning a new skill, whether it's coding, whether it's programming, whether it's project management, whether it's a technical skill or even a soft skill, learning how to be a better writer, learning how to communicate better, and all that. So you're actually putting things into perspective, and you have something to look forward to. So very, very important.
during this period of time. One thing that I suppose I'm doing more of now is I'm reading a lot more, but and it's something that I've always done, and I always like to upskill on different topics, because I find I learn different things from topics that I read, or new topics, and it just helps me to be, I suppose, more well-rounded, and I get lots of ideas from reading things. So
Exactly.
Yeah, 100% agree there. It's really good.
And I think on top of that, it's reading things which actually enrich your mind, and that things which stimulate your mind in a good way. It's really good for your mental health, because if you just read the news and you read the news only, guess what happens to your headspace? It gets very musty. It can get very depressing if you just keep watching the news. But if you actually look at people who are crushing it out there, people who are doing amazing things, people who are serving, people who are making a difference in the midst of a crisis, you'll be inspired, and you'll realize that it is possible to succeed in a pandemic. It is possible to thrive in a recession, because if other people can do it, why not you?
Correct.
Yeah.
Could you share, I suppose, your thoughts on the various market forces that can threaten someone's career?
Very good question as well. Very big question as well. So there are a few things which are at play right now. So the first thing is the virus itself, COVID-19, and it is affecting everything. We are feeling it right now. So apart from COVID-19, other forces which could threaten your career are also things like the casualization of work and the gig economy. So when companies are trying to hire less full-time employees and to get them on maybe on a contract basis, get them on as a contractor compared to an employee, or hiring them only when there's a demand. So that's something to be aware of. The next is, which we've talked about previously, AI and automation. So even before the pandemic came in, it's good that people are aware of this and even a bit more concerned. So automation of work, especially those tasks which are physical, predictable, menial, and repetitive, those can easily be replaced by machines. So something to think about. The next force is the slowing world economy. So the economies of the world has been slowing down. Manufacturing activity, even in China, has been slowing down even before COVID-19 became rampant. So COVID-19 is basically the catalyst that threw everything out of whack. So things were already shaky. COVID-19 is not just a spanner in the works. It's literally throwing an elephant in the machine and just choking everything up. So the world economies were already slowing, even the Australian economy. So the challenge with the Australian economy is that it has a lot of eggs in the China basket. So, and I found out that Australia is actually the most China-reliant country amongst first world nations. So because we export a lot of things to China, so natural resources, iron ore, coal, natural gas, education, tourism, infrastructure development, real estate development, and all that. So there are different things at play which can affect one's employability. So therefore, that's why it's important to develop your worldview, to develop global mindedness, so that you are aware of what's happening out there. And if you know that there is a bigger push to develop intrinsic value in Australia, then you can start to think ahead of the curve, how you can be part of that conversation.
I want to move on to, I suppose I follow you on LinkedIn and I see your posts. They're always really good. In one of them, you say a quote. I'm just going to bring it up.
Okay.
It says, "Feel free to outperform your boss, leader, coach, mentor, manager, role model, etc." Could you talk more about this, and how do we outperform someone?
Yeah, so the whole notion of that is that your success and your performance does not have to be capped. Because success and opportunities are in abundance. So once again, the abundance mentality, and it's not about you increasing the slice of your pie. It's actually us all working together so that we can increase the size of our pie. So big difference. So going from focusing on your individual slice versus to enlarging our collective size of the pie. So it's not that we are scooping from a single bucket with our own teaspoons. It's actually we can scoop from the river freely with our own buckets. So I came across this quote a long time ago, and it says, work so hard and hustle so hard until your idols become your rivals, which is amazing. So the people who you look up to, you work so hard, you perform so hard until you're pretty much on par with them, because it's perfectly fine to outgrow, outshine, and outperform your superiors, because that is actually how we can move humanity and civilization forward. We only see further because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And if we feel jealous or envious about other people's success, we actually need to dig deeper into ourselves to ask about why do we actually feel insecure? Do we feel insecure because them being more successful means that there is not much left for us? If we think that way, it's once again going back to the scarcity mentality, which means that the more you have, the less I have, and vice versa. It's a zero-sum game. But success doesn't work like that. It can be a win-win situation in which the more you win, the more you inspire me to do more as well. And the more I do, the more I can help, the more I can serve, the more I can give and impact as well. So it's always coming from a place, once again, of abundance.
I want to, I suppose, touch on something that we spoke about a little while ago. We spoke about it previously in one of our previous insights. And you say the phrase, "I wish it was harder."
I wish it was harder, yes. I remember that one.
You remember that one? How do we
yes.
utilize that phrase in these times and thinking, okay, if we're in this pandemic, we're at home, we don't know when things are going to go back to normal, or if they ever do, how can we use the phrase, "I wish it was harder" in this scenario or in this situation?
So that's a very interesting phrase, and it has to be put into context because back then things were fine. So the whole notion about "I wish it was harder" is stress inoculation, which is self-imposed stress in a healthy way. Because I realized that living in a first world country, living in a developed nation, it is easy to be complacent. It is easy to rest on your laurels. It is easy to assume that things are fine and things will always be fine, but very, very dangerous if you keep living by assumption. So the whole notion about "I wish it was harder," it allows you to actually see adversity in a good light. And if things are fine, you're actually introducing stress so that you can actually shake things up. And it's just like if you want to enhance your physical strength, your endurance, and your stamina, it's important for you to induce resistance. That's why you increase the weights. That's why you exert yourself more. That's why you run a bit more. You run a bit further. You push yourself a bit harder. You do actually a few more reps than you think you can actually do. So it's actually pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. So I think the whole notion about using that in a pandemic like this is it's a fine balance. So understand that it's important to take care of yourself, self-care, self-respect. It's really important. If you need time to rest, if you need time to take your mind away from some things, that's important. But I also believe on the flip side, you need to work on yourself. So you still need to put in effort into things to grow and to stretch and challenge yourself.
And before we, I suppose, close, is there any closing thought you want to leave us with or an audience?
Yes, there's something which I want to talk about before we go. It's this thing called the law of consequence. So during this pandemic, if you look on social media, even I've posted this, there are two main schools of thought as to what you should do during the pandemic. The first school of thought says that you should upskill yourself, you should invest in yourself, you should start working in your projects, your side hustle, your business, start writing that book, start working on that project, get things going, make the most out of your time in this situation. But on the flip side, there is this school of thought saying that, hey, we're actually in a crisis It is okay to let things be because it is out of your control. So take care of yourself, rest, reflect. It is not your fault. All right. And people shouldn't have to be pressured to perform. All right. So two differing schools of thought. Um, Both are equally important in my opinion. And the fact that we are independent and fully functioning adults, we have the power of choice. So to a large extent, so we can do a lot of things within our means. We can do whatever we want, but the law of consequence states that you can do whatever you want, but you cannot escape the consequences. Right? So if you push yourself too hard during this period, whether pandemic or not, whether recession or not, you will risk burning out. It's true. That is a possible consequence. But if you don't push yourself, if you don't grow yourself, if you don't nurture your skills, you risk redundancy, you risk disruption, you risk obsolescence. So there is the downside as well. So self-care is as important as self-improvement and self-exertion. So it's important to find a balance, whatever that looks like in your schedule, whatever that looks like in your situation, and find a way to do both. Because on one hand, if you just keep pushing hard, you push hard, you keep pushing and all that, you might get very exhausted, right? But if you don't push anything at all, you might actually lag behind.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, so I think it's all about putting things into perspective and understanding that whether we do something, there is cause and effect, there are consequences, there are risks as well as opportunities. Yeah.
Thanks, Dom. This has been amazing. So thanks for sharing your insights there.
Thank you so much.